Today, 7th January 2025, there are a lot of updates from the direction of Toretsk Donetsk Oblast. Ukraine's Azov brigade launched a counterattack near Toretsk, clearing Russian positions and exposing their logistical vulnerabilities. Here, after the previous failed Russian assault, Ukrainians prepared for a swift and decisive counterattack to exploit the disarray among the retreating Russian forces. With Russian survivors left scattered and unsupported, the stage was set for the Ukrainian Azov brigade to dismantle their positions and prevent any chance of renewed offensives. The main Ukrainian goal was to conduct a follow-up counterattack to eliminate the remaining Russian forces scattered throughout the settlements, as remnants after their latest failed assault. Despite being in an unorganized state, these Russian survivors posed a continued threat to the Ukrainians, as at any time, they could reorganize themselves for a renewed attack on the southern flank of Toretsk. To prevent the Russian forces from launching such a follow-up operation, Ukrainian commanders decided to launch direct assaults to clear the enemy out while they were still unprepared. To achieve their goal, Ukrainians conducted a series of clearing operations with infantry, because even though tank raids can deal significant damage, they may leave some survivors hiding in the basements, who can communicate with each other and accumulate. Ukrainians achieved this by deploying soldiers to conduct close-quarters combat to discover and eliminate Russian positions in narrow residential areas and basements. The residential area Russians took up positions in allowed the Russian forces around 300 houses, allowing them to disperse their stormtroopers widely. The concealment provided by the houses and their basements hampers Ukrainian drone reconnaissance, making it difficult to detect and track the troops once scattered. The primary danger lies in the Russians using these basements as concealed positions to ambush Ukrainian infantry from unexpected locations during clearing operations. However, Russian forces were largely left in a disorganized state due to the heavy losses suffered during their latest attack on the southern flank. With Ukrainians deploying skilled sniper teams to deny the Russians free movement in between the houses, Russian soldiers knew that venturing into the open would almost certainly result in death. The suppression and disarray of the Russian forces allowed the Ukrainians to establish effective fire control over the area. With Ukrainian snipers and drone operators systematically eliminating any Russian soldiers who exposed themselves out in the open, picking them off one by one. This enabled the Ukrainian 12th Special Purpose Brigade, Azov, to launch well-coordinated counterattacks toward Dnipro, deploying infantry squads to target isolated Russian units entrenched in houses and basements. Combat footage highlights the elite brigade soldiers' methodical approach, advancing cautiously to neutralize Russian positions. While elite brigade soldiers effectively suppressed and disoriented the Russian defenders by throwing hand grenades into the basements and buildings they were hiding in, creating opportunities to breach their strongholds. Capitalizing on the ensuing chaos, the Ukrainian troops swiftly raided the basements, successfully eliminating resistance and capturing the remaining Russian fighters. Furthermore, the Russian forces in this sector lacked adequate transport vehicles, further compounding the plight of their isolated units as they could not receive essential ammunition and supplies. Ukrainian fire control, reinforced by precision drone strikes, not only disrupted resupply efforts, but also prevented any attempts to reinforce the village with additional resources. This exacerbated the already dire logistical challenges faced by the Russians, leaving their units increasingly vulnerable and under-equipped. Combat footage released by Russian fighters in the area shows the state of Russian logistics is extremely dire, to the point where the Russian soldiers are forced to improvise by attaching bathtubs to their motorcycles to carry supplies in. Furthermore, another geolocated video shows how Russians were using golf carts and even electric scooters to transport their soldiers and supplies to the village, which were, of course, instantly destroyed by Ukrainian kamikaze drones. Overall, the failure of the previous Russian attacks and a lack of logistics vehicles and reinforcements established perfect conditions for a successful Ukrainian counterattack that cleared the Russian presence from the settlements. Meanwhile, the strategic impact of Ukraine's counterattack on Russian operations is visible. The Russian use of improvised civilian vehicles is a stark sign of the rising issues, as armored vehicles are becoming fewer and more scarce among Russian forces due to high losses in suicidal assaults in the past. This development gradually renders them incapable of conducting large offensive maneuvers and exposes further weaknesses for Ukrainians to exploit. At the same time, new footage shared by Ukrainian paratroopers appears to show soldiers in a US-supplied Stryker armored vehicle running over Russian fighters after running out of ammunition. The brief video shared by the Ukrainian Air Assault Forces on messaging app. Telegram Monday purports to show Kyiv troops chasing down Russian soldiers in the western Russian Kursk region. Russia has been battling Ukraine in Kursk since August 2024. When Kyiv launched a surprise cross-border incursion into Russian soil. Currently, Ukraine still controls roughly half of the territory it seized in the late summer, although Moscow has been battling to peel back Kyiv's grip across the border. Moscow has deployed North Korean fighters in the Kursk region in recent months, drawing international attention to the area where foreign troops crossed into Russia for the first time since World War II. On Sunday, Russia's defense ministry and a cohort of the country's influential military bloggers said Ukraine had launched renewed operations northeast of the Kursk border town of Sudzha, which Kyiv captured early on in August. Several senior Kyiv officials teased a fresh offensive, but Ukraine's military has not officially reported a new concerted push in Kursk. The Ukrainian military said the footage showed soldiers in the country's 80th Separate Air Assault Brigade in a Stryker armored vehicle operating in an unspecified area of Kursk. The paratroopers ran out of ammunition. After heavy fighting, Russian forces were right next to them and posed a danger, the military said.